Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 13. For those of you watching this in the replay, thank you for joining me, and I hope that you find this an exciting episode for you. And for those who are with me live tonight, hey, we made it to episode 13. How exciting. So for those of you who don't know me or don't know me well, I'm Jill Wolf, learning specialist, and I help homeschool parents plan meaningful learning experiences so they can awaken their learners. It is so important in the 21st century for our young people to understand what it means to be a learner and how they learn and themselves as learners. And so that's what I'm all about. And tonight and in this series, I've been focusing on the specific learning of writing and how to ground that in play, your child's play, to get the most out of the writing experience with them. So tonight, on episode 13 of Using Play to Improve Writing, we are focusing on soldier and battle play. And I'm excited about that because my son likes that, my husband liked that, and I dug up some old pictures of me dressed up playing this. Now, you're going to laugh because these aren't that long ago. Now, I don't have the software yet to split the screen, so I'm just going to hold the picture up and we'll see if you can see me there. Is that hilarious or what? Probably about 15 years ago now. I lived down in San Diego. Here's the other one of me playing. I've got all the face makeup on and laying in the grass so they can't find me. Anyway, I just thought that since we were talking about that, we primarily think of boys playing soldier and battle, and we primarily think of younger boys. And so I'm going to start there, but I didn't want to leave out girls. Usually we don't have a lot of girls playing this at young age, but they may get excited about the military as a career or some of the things that the military get to do at a little older age. So I'm not ruling girls out of this conversation. I also am going to start with some of the young ideas for writing. And I think that while you're probably not going to find a 12 or 13-year-old dressing up in soldier gear and hiding in trees, but what you're going to find, hi Lavette, welcome. What you're going to find instead is the 12 or 13, the older boys that are starting to get excited about the idea of being a soldier or being in the military somehow, whether it's a pilot. I know Lavette's son is interested in that. And I'm not sure if it's in the military, but interested in being a pilot. But some get interested in different kinds of military roles as an older boy. So I'm going to kind of do the spread on this one tonight. Okay, Lavette, I'm going to just show you real quick because you just joined me. You're going to find this so funny. So's your son. Okay, look what I found. That's me in San Diego. Here's another one of me in San Diego. Dressed up. I've got the military. So let me tell you real quick that story. Gosh, it was probably around 2002, 2003. I was vice principal at a school, and the principal asked me to be the admin along on a junior ROTC retreat, summer retreat. And so here I was. There was probably 25 former Army officers and upper enlisted, like sergeants and the guys who'd been in for 20 years plus, that now were working ROTC at the high school, middle and high schools. And they were going to take this whole group from the district up to San Luis Obispo to this base, and they needed an administrator to come along. So here's me. I think at the time I was like 33 years old. And so if you can do the math, you can figure that out. Oops, I gave way too much. But anyway, so I was this young girl. All these guys are over 50, like I said, 20 plus years in the military. They've been working, they're all dressed in their military garb. And I'm on this, and I'm like in charge. So whenever something happened, they'd come to me. And I was kind of thinking, I'm like, you have 20 plus years of being officer in the military, and you're coming to me to solve this problem? Come on. But anyway, that's a side note. But I got to dress. They gave me BDUs. I got to wear them. I did the obstacle course with the kids and with them, and it was so much fun. And so I had been living in San Diego, a lot of military down there. So it was really fun to get to go on this junior ROTC experience and actually feel like a soldier for the week. And one of them, funny story, really fast. One of the one of the officers, I think, might have had a little crush in my direction. And he came up one day kind of all, and he challenged me to a push-up contest. And he was like, I bet I could do 10 push-ups to your one push-up. And so I decided to kind of play it very coy. And I'm like, oh, push-ups? Gosh, I don't even know if I would know how to do a push-up without my knees. And so, I just totally baited him right into going, I'll do 10 for your one. I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, all the other adults, the men there, are laughing because they've heard me talk about going rock climbing and all this athletic stuff I did. And this guy apparently wasn't paying attention. And so I'm like, okay. So we brought the kids out. They had me down doing the push-ups and counting them. And I was going, and I hit 13, 14, 15. And I know this guy's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do 160 push-ups, like, in a row. And so he, like, kneeled down and was, like, saying something like, are you tired? And yelling at me like a drill sergeant would do. And I think I got to 18 push-ups. And so he owed me 180, and all the kids are like, you're 180 push-ups down. And he couldn't do 180 in a row. So he did like 20 or 30. And then he's like, I'm going to have to owe you more later. I'm like, okay, I'm cashing in. And so after lunch, after whatever, the kids are like, you owe Miss B 20 more push-ups. And they made this guy do his whole 180 push-ups over the weekend. It was pretty funny. But anyway, it was a really great camaraderie and awesome experience to be a part of. And I think that a lot of our young boys, they don't know necessarily that it's going to be that great because they're not in the middle of being around 500 or 600, men that are, running the obstacle course and wearing this and training, and going to battle together. But they have an innate sense of duty and of protection and of I'm going to hide and I'm going to get this guy and I'm going to shoot this guy. And so they play soldier very, very young. And so there's some writing things that we can do around that. So I've spent the last 7 minutes talking about me. Let's talk about writing from soldier and battle play. So I came up with these categories. I have descriptive writing that we can do, some personal narrative, some procedural, some research, and comparative and analysis. And I tend to have most of these categories are kind of emerging out of each type of play. And so, again, I'm going to start kind of some of the young ones. And descriptive writing is really the first kind of writing that our kids do. And I'm guessing that some of the soldier and battle play can start as early as 3 and 4 years old. And they're not necessarily able to write yet, but they can talk and they can tell you what's going on. And that's the start of writing, is verbally communicating my ideas. Remember, my whole thing, writing is not just handwriting words. It's the communication of what I understand, what I know, out to an audience. And so you can start some of this really young. So some of the descriptive prompts that I have for you are, who are you and what's your job? So a 4-year-old can tell you, and he may not tell you the jargon, like I'm an infantryman or I'm a corpsman or I am a pilot, but he can say I'm a soldier. And what's your job? Okay, so it starts with some of that. Descriptive, if you do get into it, they could write a paragraph or a sentence. Could start with a sentence, or 2 sentences or 3, and even then get into, so write me a couple sentences about who you are. And, because soldier and battle play is very imaginative, maybe they've imagined themselves a particular type of soldier or a particular character with a name and a backstory. Who knows how much they've done with this. But the description, so start with who you are. So it could be like a couple sentences of who you are and then a couple sentences about your job, all the way up to a paragraph, etc. What happens if you get hurt? Because people get hurt in battle. So what happens? And let them think about that a little bit. So if I'm out and I'm hiding in the tree and I'm going to battle, but someone shoots me, what do I do? What happens? Well, some might say, well, you die. Or they might go into, my buddy gets me and they carry me to somewhere and they do an operation. It's really cute actually to hear young boys explain the answers to these. But as they're getting just a little older, they can now start to write some of these or do voice to text and record them and then write them. But constructing the ideas. What happens if you get hurt? Who are you fighting? Like, who's the enemy? Who did they come up with? What are you fighting for? That's a great one. Describe your gear. Now, at this point, it could be all imaginative, or maybe they have a hat that they wear, or they have something they've strapped around them like a rope, but to them it's like got their, holds their gun or their sword or whatever kind of, maybe even a lightsaber because they're a Jedi soldier, etc. Your weapons, describe your weapons. Are you leading anybody, or is it just you? Are you out here by yourself? Is there a team? Do you have a squad? Is there, and are you in charge of anybody else, and what are they doing? You can start to get, with a little bit older, some questions of strategy. So why are you in the tree? How is that working for you? Okay, now one thing about these, so let me jump real quick to older kids. Older kids may be thinking, older boys, even and girls, may be thinking of a military career, or soldier and battle in their video games. Or maybe they're reading books about soldiers and battle and the different armed forces or different wars or things like that. So you can start with some of these. That's actually falls in personal narrative. I put it in my wrong category. Okay. Let's do personal narrative. So personal narrative can be about myself, a personal, like what I gave you at the beginning, a couple stories about my experience with this JROTC group and what I was doing there. By the way, I did do the whole camouflage face paint, and I hid out behind the leaders, the guys' barracks that were leading. And at the end of the week, I was hiding there with all of that, and I had gifts and stuff and prizes for them. But I hid, and they didn't see me, and I got to jump out and scare them. That was really fun. But so, okay, what I just gave, that's a tiny little personal narrative. Personal narratives also can be of a character. They don't have to be of me, the person. They can be of the character I'm playing. So since Soldier in Battle is a lot of times very imaginative play, hey Karen, welcome. The personal narrative can be from their point of view. So maybe they do a journal entry as the soldier, or a journal entry as one of the guys that soldier is leading. Another is a letter to mom. You hear that in lots of movies. You hear that these young, or even, you talk to military guys, and if they're not married or they don't have a girlfriend, many of them write their letters to mom about their experiences there. So what would you say? Or even a script or short story about the soldier they're playing, or the soldier's experiences, or the battle they're fighting. Something that captures the narrative side of the people and their experience there. Okay. As they get older, and you have older students doing this, these could be longer. You certainly could say, I want you to write even a script. Let's say we're going to do a short film is around 10 to 20 pages on average. And so you could just write, you can write a short script. You're going to imagine a short movie made about this soldier, and what would be the story you're going to tell. And then we're going to learn how to write it in script format. So you're introducing a new text form, and you're going with the kind of play they like. They could do reflections, even like journal reflections of what happened that day. And if they're playing as an older child, they're playing it as a game, then it can be in a level. So what happened in this level? Give us the personal side of it. How did your character grow? Or did they gain stats? Did they die and have to use up 2 or 3 lives? Like, how did play go? And then what did you as the player learn? So you could do some reflective personal things around the narrative in the game that they play. Okay, so that's personal narrative. Let's look at procedural. This one I found kind of interesting, and I thought that from my experience with these guys in this JROTC, and a lot of the military that I met when I lived in San Diego, they're very, very big on working out and the routines that they do to stay fit. whether it's an obstacle course and the timing on it, or whether it's so many push-ups or sit-ups. In fact, just the other day, my husband was telling me about this routine that's floating around out there right now. Apparently a SEAL created it and liked, Navy SEAL, and he liked, it was this ultimate challenge kind of thing that he issued to his buddies. And then something happened and he passed away. So all his buddies carried on and took this, and they issued this challenge every day on Memorial Day for anybody who wants, any guy who wants to take it. So you have a lot of military guys that, in honor of this, this guy or others that they know have passed away, they do this particular workout, and it's a routine. Well, these routines are procedural text. I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this. So your procedural text could be a workout, or the workout that military do, or a soldier does. It could be, you know, sometimes when they're playing soldier, it's all, I'm in the heat of battle. So maybe you pull them out sometimes and say, okay, look, I want you to talk about some of your training that went into you being able to be this great soldier. And so some of the writing could be, what was your workout? What was your training like? How did that, and those are going to be more procedural. We did this, and we did this, and we did this. We spent an hour on the gun range. I clearly don't know the jargon of the military. Then we go and we work out for 2 hours, and we go do this, and then we work out again, and then we go to the obstacle course, and then mealtime, blah, 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 blah. So it could be their schedule, their training schedule. You could even have them go research what is the training schedule for somebody in this kind of a job. How now we're getting into even some comparative, I'm going to throw out there, comparing the training or the training schedule for different types of jobs in the soldier world. So my husband did, oh my goodness, I can't remember the word. Oh, I'm so bad at this. Big, huge cannons. Okay, anyway, there's some that are trained to be ground troops, some that are in different kinds of tanks, and some that do air, some that are in the sea. I mean, there's all these different kinds of jobs. So what is the training like that's different? So some comparison there. Even what's the difference between, so now I've jumped over to comparison, sorry. Let me go back to procedural. So another one for procedural, we had the workout or the training. Another is for them to create an obstacle course. Obstacle courses are huge in soldier training. And it's because each of these different things that they encounter use and work different muscles. And a lot of times you have to do it as a team or as a group or squad, like 2 or 3 guys or 4 guys together, because some of these you can't do by yourself. And so it's meant to develop teamwork. So you could develop an obstacle course, have them draw pictures, even put it up in the back of your house. I've found through Pinterest a handful of little kid obstacle courses that are as simple as like a 2x4 that's up on just 2 little pieces of 2x4. So there's some balance involved, but you know, it's 2 inches off the ground. So if they fall, it's not a big deal. Or something with ropes that are just tied between things that are already in your yard. Even taking ropes or duct tape or spray paint on your grass, because you know grass grows and you mow it off, but and doing a shape like a zigzag all over that they're to run and follow. Old tires, all sorts of things that you could build, and that's for a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old. They would have a great time creating their own obstacle course. So the first thing you would do is research how to build this together, and then write out, well, what are they going to actually have to do? And that's your procedural text that they're writing, some writing from that, and then go build it and time them. You could have them create a data table, and if they do it each day, how long does it take them, and are they showing improvement, you know, in training, essentially. But obstacle courses are something really fun, and they're a little bit more procedural in the kind of writing that you do. Okay, so now let me go to some of my comparatives. Compare today's battle and what you're doing here to your training. So how is the training that you experience? Well, if this is a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old, or even a 9 or 10-year-old, they've not been through this training, so it's still imaginative. So I'm imagining that I did an obstacle course and I used to run and I'd eat, but now I'm getting shot at. Oh, so were you trained for that? Like, how does that? So some of the comparison is that it could be in, well, how does the feelings different? Sorry if I'm realizing that I don't always look at the camera. I'm looking down at my face, which I shouldn't be. I should be looking up at you guys. So I'm sorry if my eyes aren't like directly at you all the time. I'm still working on that. Anyway, compare different training for different jobs. Compare what the different jobs do on the field. And so maybe one day his play is that I launch from way up here. Maybe some days I'm up in the tree, I'm a sniper, and other days I'm a corpsman, so I'm going around, I'm just making sure everybody's okay, and I got my backpack with a red cross on it, blah blah blah. So if he or she plays different roles, then some could be comparison. Well, compare what you did today to your role and what you did yesterday, or the training you'd need for that. Again, even if they're young and they're not doing a lot of research and it's just imagination, let them imagine it. Let them create in their minds what the training or the job or what I'm doing really is. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's meant to be out of their play right now. Okay, another way I have found for some interesting play, back to that. Research. Let's do this one. I always believe that there's a place for research, and it's not that I'm going to actually conduct an experiment and go out there and collect data on it. It's more that I'm looking up information about something. And in this case, especially if they're older, I could research other wars and battles that are like this one that I'm playing. If they're playing it in a video game versus kind of their live action imaginative play outside, then what is this game based on? Was there a war or a battle that really took place that they have extracted and created this game out of? And let's do then some research on that. Or maybe there's one that's similar. Research war and battle strategies. Now, that seems so ambiguous to most of us. But I'll tell you about something very interesting. This kind of leads me into my next one, which is movies. But World War II, I've become very fascinated with war history because my husband is fascinated by it. And when we were first dating, I wanted to like what he liked and enjoy those things. And so they were war documentaries. So we put on war doc. Now I enjoy them. And one of the most interesting ones we saw was World War II. And well, there's a lot of them on World War II, but the one we saw, they had actually, Karen, you're going to love this one. They actually brought a crew from Hollywood. They hired a crew from Hollywood under highly classified things. So this was only released in the last 5 to 10 years. Like nobody knew that this had even happened during World War II. But they had hired a group from Hollywood to make it seem like American and British troops were one place and moving to another, when they were really nowhere near either of those two places. And so this whole documentary covers how they did it. They actually built these heavy canvas, heavy like rubber almost, tanks that they inflated. They inflated them up so that if anybody flew over air, they would see what looked like this whole tank division. They pre-recorded in Hollywood actual soundtracks on records, because that's what they used back then, of all these battle sounds. And they were sounding like troops running. They sounded like directions being given, like over a megaphone, and tanks and stuff starting up and rolling out and things rolling. And they created this whole thing to sound like this battalion was here and gonna move to here. And then they moved the speakers like every couple days, so it sounded like they were moving. And it actually was so convincing that some of the huge amount of German troops moved around to try to offset this group, and the American British had set this as a trap, and so when they came in, they were able to just decimate them. You talk about strategy. That's a great one. Who would have thought of using Hollywood people to professionals to make, art guys and sound guys and script guys to create this whole facade? It was amazing. And it was all discovering this through a documentary, that there was that kind of strategy that went on. So especially if they're older, if they're playing games, battle games or war games with more strategy and they're strategic minded, then some of these different ways of researching or watching documentaries can open their eyes to, I would never have thought about that as a strategy to, take down German troops. So research is a huge thing. There is a lot of research. Some of this now is age appropriate. One of the big things that I find fascinating, my husband finds, is weapons technology. And when you look at what were the weapons during like gladiator days, the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago, what were the weapons 500 years ago? What were the weapons 200 years ago? Like, when did they start changing, and then how rapidly have they changed? And what even now, and just how research and technology has morphed these, and it changes war. It really does. To have drones now that fly over and drop versus pilots, or you have guns and you have things that can pinpoint based on someone's laser pointer and shoot and hit targets versus needing to have troops down there. I mean, it changes the way war is. And so I know this is a difficult topic for some people who may not be as comfortable with war and battle and weapons. But I will say that if the young boys and even girls are playing soldier play, battle play, and even video games with this, a little bit older, they're already curious about this stuff. And these things can actually get them to do some fascinating research and writing that you may not be able to get from another topic. I think it's a great entrance into history, talking about history through the lens of war and war technology. You can look at great leaders, have them research and look at great leaders. Somebody once, one of our prompts in a leadership program I was in down in San Diego, we had to analyze and explain the leadership model of Hitler. Now, there were all sorts of people that said, well, he wasn't really a leader. Well, if you look at what he led, he certainly was, but he was a corrupt, scary leader, motivated by the wrong things, making horrible choices in terms of human life. But in terms of rallying a whole entire country to buy into his philosophy, in terms of the technology they had, the advancement. I mean, one little country was taking on how much, and they were winning for a long time. I mean, he did lead, but look what happened. So we had to analyze from these different leadership models, Hitler. And that was really uncomfortable, but it was very fascinating in discussion because we had to keep bringing ethics into the conversation. So depending on the age of your child, depending on how much they really are enjoying this topic and this kind of play, you can dive into some very, very fascinating type prompts and things for them to research and talk about and write about. All right, one last one because we're approaching 30 minutes and I try not to ever go over 30. Movies. There are a ton of movies made about soldiers and battles and wars. More often than not, they're rated R. So, and it's usually language and violence. And sometimes the language is very sexually explicit. So watching these with young people gets a little gray. But older students, so those of you with high school students that are juniors and seniors, watching these and being able to look at, okay, here's this representation of the Vietnam War. Like there's 3 or 4 pictures out about the Vietnam War. It's a very controversial war. America's very split on being there. And so you could dig into what were the sides, what were the both sides that wanted to be there and felt we should, and those who didn't. How do movies represent that? How do the soldiers feel? How did the soldiers feel when they came home? And why do we now have a very different perspective on our soldiers and our men, our military, than they did then? There's a lot of movies and documentaries all over the place about World War II and World War I. A lot of analysis, like footage that's showing up. I do find it fascinating. They put 2 of the Avenger movies, 2 of the Marvel, well, maybe they won't both Marvel. Anyway, the Wonder Woman movie and then Captain America. Both were set in early World War time period when they first were rolled out. And I just find it interesting. They chose, when Hollywood rolled these out, chose to place them in that time and place and to tell their stories. So that's an interesting thing to look at. Why those wars? So war movies, both from ones that are narrative and entertainment film to documentaries, can bring some very interesting perspective, conversation, and writing opportunity with battle, soldier, and war. Okay, let me check my notes and see if I got everything. Okay, I think that this is a really fun topic. I think a lot of, I'm watching my little 2-year-old and everything's a sword. Everything. His banana is a sword. And he swings it like he is out to kill and he's going to protect. He's done a little too much damage to my car with the golf clubs that are swords, but 2-year-old boys make everything into weapons. And I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. I think it's this natural hardwiring of young men to want to protect, to feel like they have the responsibility and the desire to be the one out there that is protecting the weaker, the less fortunate, those that need defending. And I think when they're playing soldier in battle, that there's a lot of that at the root. So the question, what are you fighting for, can really start to get them thinking, why am I out here in this tree? Why am I dressed in this garb? And it's something they really should explore before signing on the dotted line at 18 saying, I want to enlist. Why do I want to be there? But I think there's some very interesting things to talk about and write about and tap into with young boys that already are resistant to writing and reading in school. Many, because I have to sit for a long time, but luckily in homeschool we don't have that. But you get to cater to their interests and you get to cater to their play. And this is something that I think a lot of them have a lot of fun with, so you should too. Okay, so if you have questions, please put them in the body of this. I will answer them. We're at the end of May, so June and July coming up with some new topics. I'm going to post tomorrow and ask for some feedback and polling on some topics of which play you'd like me to explore next. And for those that are picking this up tomorrow or the weekend, I hope you guys have an absolutely fabulous weekend together with your family. Please share if you're doing any of this in Homeschooling Hub. And I forgot to share it over there. So I'll share it over there at the end. And share with us your ideas and things that you've tried and what's coming up and questions that you might have. Okay? Remember that it's so important, so important, so important. We're tapping into our children with their play because we want to be able to awaken them as learners and get them excited about learning and understanding themselves as learning. So have a great weekend, and I hope you learned something great today and you'll learn something great this weekend. Bye, guys.